Good evening, everyone. We continue our study in the book of First Kings in chapter 4. Now, in the English Bible, we're still in chapter 4, verse 21. In the Hebrew Bible, it would have gone on to chapter 5. But doesn't matter, but the verses are still the same, but in a different chapter order. Now, where we left off yesterday was Judah and Israel as numerous in terms of numbers. They were so many that they can't count. That's the expression, as numerous as the sand by the sea in its number. And so they were eating, drinking, and rejoicing. And we have noted that this was a constant celebration. We continue in verse 21 of the English Bible. It says that, and now Solomon is ruling over all the kingdoms. Now, these are things that we have to express and define a little bit. Uh, and that would be from the river to the land of the Philistines and to the border of Egypt. They brought tribute and served Solomon all the days of his life. So let us break this down a little bit. When we read these words, sometimes we don't really pay attention. Now, first of all, we're now no longer talking about the first 4 years of Solomon. The context is giving us all the days of his life. That was his entire reign. And now we need to then look at this word, the Euphrates River. The Hebrew name is just the river. And every time you see the river, it's a very specific river, and it does mean the Euphrates in our terms today. When it says the land, and that would be the promised land. When it says the river, it would be the Euphrates River. Then it says all the way down to the land of the Philistines. The Philistines is down towards the southwest of Israel. That's the land of the Philistines. So let me just put it down. The southwest of Israel. And then to the border of Egypt. Now, this border of Egypt, it is commonly known to be the present border of Egypt at the Sinai Peninsula. And so if we were to draw this map, then we will find that this would be the Dead Sea, the River Jordan, and this would be the Great River. This is the River Euphrates. This is the Jordan. And so this piece of land from the river all the way down, and right there we have the border of, I guess, Egypt. And this would be the border. So that would be the whole place that, well, I guess this verse here is describing to us this whole land is now under Solomon. Now, if you go back and read Genesis chapter 15, Genesis chapter 17, you find that the description of the promised land is all the way from the river to the border of Egypt, bounded by the sea, and all the way to this part of the Jordan. And so this piece of land, as we know it, would be the kingdom of Solomon. First, it was the kingdom of David, it was the kingdom of Solomon. It is nevertheless also called the kingdom of Israel. Now, under the kingdom of Israel, we are also well aware that many of these places do not belong to Israel in the sense of the promised land. And so when we talk about the promised land, it's only this part and down to the south and a little bit off to the north. So this whole part would be Israel. But the rest of them are all different kingdoms. As you can see here, all the kingdoms. So there are kingdoms all the way here. Right? These are all seen as kingdoms. All right. Now, what is important for us to realize is that these kingdoms on the north, which would be Lebanon, Tyre, and all those towards the north, then you would find you have the Ammon, Moab, Edom, the Philistines, all the way down to Gaza. Now, all of these are called the reign of Solomon because he was ruling over all the kingdoms from this whole region. This is the fulfillment of what God has promised Abraham, that this is the entire part of the reign of Israel. Although the promised land is technically only this part. And so when they crossed over the Jordan River in the book of Joshua, they were to conquer about 30 over cities. Right before that, Moses led them to conquer the land of the Amorites, King Sihon and King Og, which would be on the eastern shore of the Jordan. But the land that belongs to Ammon, the land that belongs to Moab, the land that belongs to Edom, they are not to touch. God is not giving them the land. So the promised land would be the land that they have inherited, but the kingdom of Solomon or the kingdom of Israel is far bigger. That's what I want to underscore to us this afternoon, this evening. Now look at what it requires to support Solomon's household. Verse 22. Solomon's provision for one day was 30 cores of fine flour, 60 cores of meal. Now understand, cores is about 220 liters for dry grain, about there, which is a lot of flour and I guess a lot of meal, right? That's a lot. Verse 23, 10 fat oxen, 20 pasture-fed oxen. Now, what does that mean? This is something which is part and parcel of the Hebrew. 10 fat oxen. Fat oxen means fatted or fattened ox in the stall. Meaning, these would be oxen that is not wandering in the pasture. These are oxen that is fed and they just stay in their own stall. They don't run around. And so they are fed to be fattened. And this word comes from the word bara, which incidentally in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, is translated as create. But it literally means to fill. So this word fat is the word bari, which means to be filled with fat. And these will be oxen that is kept in the stall and their entire day is to eat and sleep. And so they are fattened in that sense. The next one is pasture-fed oxen. The pasture-fed fed oxen would be the type of ox that will be roaming around in the pasture land, eating grass, right? Eating grass. These would be fattened in the stalls. They are not there looking for their own food. And so there are two kinds of ox here that we're talking about. Then 100 sheep. That's on a daily basis. 100 sheep here could be, well, sheep or goats, right? Sheep or goats. And then it says, besides deer, gazelles, roebucks, and fattened geese. Now, all of these are what we call the deer family. This would be a fowl, right? It could be ducks or geese, that kind of a fowl. And these are all fattened because then they'll be kept in an enclosure, fed and fattened. And so they have already done a lot of work in domesticating animals. And this would be the provision for one day. And that is an incredible amount of food. And one day is Yom Echad, as in Genesis chapter 1, verse 5. And there was evening and there was morning, and it was one day. This is the same word, Yom Echad. And so this is a focus to tell us about a particular complete day. In verse 24, this is a repeat again. For he was ruling, and the word ruling literally means to have dominion, right? To have dominion. Now, to have dominion does not necessarily mean own the land. It does not mean own the land. It means that he has the authority over the geography. Now, how does this work? Well, in ancient times, whenever you talk about dominion, when a kingdom comes in, for example, the Babylonian, the Egyptian, the Assyrian, so what they do is that they conquer. They don't really own the land, but they have authority over all the kings and the kingdom of the people. And so they will be the ones who would give tribute, pay money to the ones who are the conqueror or the king of the day. And so Solomon was king of the day. He was king of the day over everything west of the Euphrates River. Now, this one means, I think it is, this word west is actually not the correct word. Let me just put it down. It would be on this side, right? On this side of the river, not the west of the river. On this side of the river, which means that if this is the Euphrates River, then it would be on this side of the river. That is what the text would mean. All right. And then you have the sea. And then right here we have the Sea of Galilee, the Jordan, the Dead Sea. And then we have the Aqaba. And this would be the demark to the kingdom of Egypt. So it says here, on this side of the river, from Tifsa. Tifsa is actually a place right here. Tifsa means the crossover. And it appears that since you have to cross over the river, there is a place they call the crossover, which they can cross the Euphrates, and that would be Tifsa. And then the description is even to Gaza. Now, Gaza is down south, right here. Right? This is Gaza. And then over all the kings west of the river. Now, again, this is not west of the river. This is on this side of the river, which tells us that Solomon is now king over these entire area. And as I had shown you previously, this would be the promised land. And so what you find is that this entire area is called the kingdom and is a repeat again, right? A repeat. And the repeat is telling us that the area that Solomon is ruling is huge. The actual area that was the real land of Israel is only here. As you can see, oops, sorry. So that would be the area that they had conquered. The rest of the area was not given to Israel, but under the ruling of Solomon, first David, then Solomon, all the kingdoms around them were under the friendship and peace of Solomon. So now we can say he had peace on all sides surrounding him. Peace being shalom on all sides surrounding him would mean that everywhere around Israel is peace. And it is important for us to then note in verse 25, it says that, and so Judah and Israel lived securely. The idea of live securely actually means, how should we say, safely. Safely. And so if you go back and you read, say, Ezekiel chapter 38 and 39, you'd find that as well, that in the end days, Israel will live securely again after the war with Gog and Magog. And so this is that same term that they lived securely. And I guess if you understand this text, then when you go back and read Ezekiel 38 and 39, then you would understand what the text there also mean. It says, everyone under his vine and fig tree is secure, from Dan to Beersheba. Now, Dan to Beersheba is here. Dan is up here. Dan to Beersheba, which is down here. This is Beersheba, which is the area down south. So the whole idea here is from north to south of the land, they were all secure. They were all safe. Now the framework, again, all the days of Solomon. Now, I need to emphasize this is that the days of Solomon was safe and secure. And that was why God didn't want David to build the temple, because the time of David was a time of fighting. But by the time David ended his reign, then all of Israel was at peace, handed down to Solomon. Solomon did not have to fight. Solomon did not have to fight. Now, in verse 26 onwards, it is a description of how wealthy Solomon was. So it says Solomon had 40,000 stalls of horses for his chariots, 12,000 horsemen, and those deputies provided food for the king. Now, this would be the officials, right? Officers. Remember, we talked about officers that Solomon put in place to make sure that out of the 12 months, every one of the officers would be able to sustain the palace for the entire month. It says, and all who came to King Solomon's table. So this is about food, each in his month. And that was what we read yesterday. And they allowed nothing to be lacking. Now, the idea is nothing to be lacking means nothing is short. Nothing lacking is nothing short. Nothing short. It means that everything was in place, right? Everything was in place. Continuing on, you would see that they also brought barley, straw for the horses. Now, understand this, in the ancient days, horses is for war. And so the translation here is correct by implying that they were war horses. These horses were kept for war purposes. And baggage horses, the ones who are carrying, how should we say, carrying carrying things, I guess you can say that. Steeds, they would be relay animals, and this would be for logistics. So we have war and we have logistics, and horses are then moving things from place to place when it was required, each deputy according to his duty. What exactly this means is that the officials would move food to where Solomon is. And this literally means that these are food sent to Solomon wherever he may be in the kingdom. And the horses are used for that particular purpose. We come to the last segment of today, because I want to spend time on this segment, and then tomorrow we will talk about the preparation of the temple. Verse 29. It says, and then God gave Solomon wisdom. Now remember what I had mentioned about wisdom, discernment, breadth of mind. All these are the same. All right. Wisdom is A. Great discernment is understanding. B. Breadth of mind. Breadth of mind, I think you can say that how should we say, an understanding and largeness of heart. And all of these are actually the name of wisdom. This is wisdom, this is wisdom, and this is wisdom. That would be C. All right, A, B, and C. All of this is about wisdom. Now let me explain. First, there is God gave Solomon uh, great wisdom, right? Great wisdom. Uh, let's see. God gave Solomon wisdom, understanding, and breadth of heart. So I'm saying that all these three are the same. It is describing of wisdom, insight, understanding, uh, decision making. All of these are used to rule and judge Israel. So the first thing you see is he has wisdom, then he has understanding or intelligence, or he has keen insight. That's the word. He has the breadth of heart. His mind is vast. He understands many things and he's able to make good decisions. All of this reflect the concept of wisdom. And so I call this the A, B, and C because they're all talking about the same thing. Now, how much did God give in terms of ability? Now, understand that this ability is a keen insight. You cannot weigh, you cannot really measure. And because you cannot measure these intangibles, so the expression is this, like the sand that is by the seashore. And this means that it is uncountable or immeasurable. Basically, to tell us that if you were to compare, it is incomparable. That is what this little Hebrew saying is talking about. Like the sand that is on the shore, cannot count, cannot measure. And so the wisdom, the insight, the understanding, the way that Solomon makes decision is just incomparable. You cannot measure it and you can't count. That's basically what verse 29 is saying. And so in verse 30, there is a continued description. His wisdom surpassed, right? His wisdom is greater. Now, surpass means greater. His wisdom is greater than the wisdom of all the people of the East. Who are the people of the East? And you find that it is likely to have been the Eastern thinkers, the Eastern magi's, perhaps, the Eastern wise men, and then all the wisdom of Egypt. And of course, Egypt was a kingdom then, and all the wisdom that is in Egypt doesn't compare to Solomon. Then he was wiser than all other people. And then um, we talk about uh, Etan, uh, Haman. Then we have Kalkol. Then we have Darda, the sons of uh, Mahol, and his fame in all the surrounding nations. Now, these gentlemen here, as is being mentioned, is actually spoken of in First Chronicles, chapter 2, verse 6. And so you can check out their names. So let me just pause to talk about this. His wisdom was greater than the people of the East, uh, which tells us that Solomon is very intelligent. So we can put intelligent here as well in terms of wisdom. So he knows things, he knows insights, he knows characters, personality, he knows science, he knows math, he knows astronomy, he knows things that is around, he knows much about life itself. And so all verse 30 and 31 was talking about is to express in what way his wisdom was immeasurable, in what way it was incomparable and uncountable, because he was better than the Easterners, better than the Egyptians, better than everybody else. And so this is the Hebrew way of saying that there is no one better than Solomon in knowledge, insight, broadness of mind, understanding, wisdom. And so you take that and put it all together, and that is the epitome of Solomon. Now, in verse 32, we are now told that it seems that he can tell proverbs, right? He told 3,000 proverbs. He has songs numbered 1,005. And basically, we are made to understand that he has written many proverbs and songs. Now, some of the Psalms were his as well, but we now have the book of Proverbs largely there. He has said many of the Proverbs. He has, because of the way he sees life, that God has given him that insight of life. Ecclesiastes was accorded to him as well. Now, in verse 33, it says that he told of trees, meaning he is very familiar about wood, trees, type of plants, from the cedar that is in Lebanon to the hyssop. The hyssop is like a little shrub, a little grass, a little weed that is used for the equivalent of parsley in that area. And so he knows about what to do with all these that grows on the wall, because these are the hyssop actually grows out of anywhere, out of under the rock, under in between the walls. And hyssop is what we call a very common plant, like a weed, grows anywhere and everywhere. And there is a lot of good use for it too. And so he knows about the best of wood from Lebanon and the best of plants from hyssops. He also spoke of animals, birds, things that crawl, and the fish, which tells us this, that he is very good in his botany. He is very good in his flora and fauna. He's very good in his biology. He's very good in his knowledge about animals. This is what the text is describing. It is to show us that the wisdom of Solomon is not just being able to judge cases. It is way beyond, so that he can share his insights to the improvement and betterment of the life of the Israelites all around, to know how to deal with nature, to deal with what God has created, what he can do, what he can't do, what they can do with many of the things that are around them. That is wisdom. That is knowledge. That is insight. That is intelligence. And so please do not be looking at the word wisdom in a myopic way. We have to look at wisdom in a broad sense of the word. And this is Solomon, an area that we seldom talk about. Now, when you are so intelligent, maybe he's got a genius IQ. Now we read that people came from all the nations to hear the wisdom of Solomon. Now, all the nations. The word nations here are the people, the peoples, right? The people all over from different kingdoms. They come to listen. Listen means to hear, to listen, to understand how to live. This is the insight of Solomon. It is not merely about science and maths and astronomy, but how to apply all this information and knowledge that he has to live. God has given Solomon the ability to know and understand many things of this world, many things that God has created, has made, has put in place. What God wants man to do, how to live, how to use these as guides, how to enjoy this world that God has given. They were here to listen to Solomon. And it's called the wisdom of Solomon. The wisdom of Solomon is not just wise words, it is really words of wisdom to live. Now, observe these words from all the kings of the land who had heard of his wisdom. If they have not heard of his wisdom, it means that they were too far away. But the kings that is in the land that he has control over, from the Euphrates all the way down to Egypt, they know of Solomon. And all the kings of the land that is under the reign of Solomon, they came. And they came to hear of his wisdom. Exactly what that means? Very simple. To hear, to listen, to understand. And they go back. Not only do the kings know how to live, they know how to teach their people how to live. They know how to judge their people justly and fairly. They learn about some of these wisdom and knowledge and insight of life to apply back to their own environment. This is what I wanted to leave with us today before we end, that the wisdom of Solomon is about his insight, his understanding, his intelligence, the way he makes decisions, the way he knows about the flora and fauna, the biology, the animals, the astronomy, the signs and wonders of the world, the universe, that he knows how to track the astronomy, the stars, and hence this kind of knowledge then spread it far and wide when the kings came, when the people came, when they come to learn how to live from the lips of Solomon. The glory of the kingdom of Israel is really what God has effected on Solomon, because he was humble enough to ask for insight to rule Israel rather than material things. And in so doing, we can see that God has blessed him materially. Now, if you recall, there was one condition, that if he wants to live long, he has to walk by the statutes of God. And that would mean that he has to do it day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year. And hence, we come to a close up till verse 34 to understand what exactly is happening to Solomon. This is the glory of the reign of Solomon in a nutshell, when it focuses on the good side of Solomon, the glorious side, the side that shows the world who God is, who the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of David, and the God of Solomon is. And with this, it's spread it all over that the blessings that goes through Solomon to his people is also shared far and wide. And with this, we come to the end of our session today.